He won the Ballon d'Or in 2007, led AC Milan to European glory, inspired a generation of football fans, but today, people barely mention his name. He was elegant, professional, powerful, and then he was gone. In this video, we're asking the question, why does nobody talk about Ricardo Kaká anymore? To me, the most disrespected Ballon d'Or winner of all time. As someone who paints iconic footballers for a living, I'm inspired by stories of legends like Kaka. I was 15 years of age when I started watching him. First time I started to get into football seriously. I was still learning what greatness looked like. I had homegrown heroes like Steven Gerrard that at that time took us to Champions League glory. And around about the same time is when I got introduced to Ricardo Kaká. Kaka was very different from other players. He didn't shout, he didn't showboat, and he controlled games from the centre of midfield, even though he didn't have those loud qualities. To me, he moved like he didn't belong on the pitch with everyone else. He moved as if he was from an advanced part of the game, a more further evolutionised version of the game, if that's a word. Other players dribbled, but Kaka glided across the pitch. Others sprinted and he seemed to coast. There was no chaos in his game, it was just pure rhythm. To me, it was elegance without effort, and it was dominance without arrogance. But the question is, in a sport that rewards noise and headlines, was that enough to last? When Kaka arrived at AC Milan in 2003, the team was already full of legends. Pirlo, Maldini, Nesta, Shevchenko and Gattuso. And still, somehow Kaka managed to be the heart of it all. By 2004, he was the main player in that team. By 2005, he was leading Milan to European Cup finals. He wasn't physical like Vieira, and he certainly wasn't wild like Wayne Rooney. He also wasn't as expressive as most Brazilians like Ronaldinho. To me, Kaka was smooth, deadly, and at times completely unplayable, but in his own quiet way. In the 2005 Champions League final, which we only ever remember for Liverpool making the most impressive comeback in a final of all time, but when I look at that game and when I was watching it at the time as a 15-year-old who loved football, and when I've watched it back since, Kaka in the first half completely destroyed Liverpool in that game. I think he set up 2 goals, but the second, the ball to Crespo, which we'll play on screen, it's a moment in football where he turned Steven Gerrard in the centre of the pitch, which is a feat in itself. Steven Gerrard was a Ballon d'Or contender at that time. And he played this 40-yard ball, inch perfectly, and it was just a ball that stood out to me as, wow, this guy is just on a different planet to everyone else. And even though he lost that final, his class still shone through, and that's when I really started to respect Kaka as one of the greatest I've ever seen. But then came 2007. This is a year where Kaka reached a level of football that most players could only dream of. He finished the season as top goal scorer in the Champions League, as a number 10, as an attacking midfielder. He was embarrassing players that were at the top of the game, like Vidic, Evra and Sami Hyypiä. And in the 2007 Champions League final, Kaka wasn't loud, he went about his business quietly, and in some ways, he played a lot differently than he did the 2 years before in 2005. The ball to Inzaghi is one that I still don't forget, the pain that it caused me. But he was majestic, he was magical, he was mesmerising. He didn't flex on the pitch either, he ended us quietly. And although that final was painful for me and many other Liverpool fans, as a football fan first, I just could not stop admiring his quality. He made it look so easy, maybe too easy. After the 2007 season, Kaka went on to win the Ballon d'Or, and he did so against a young Cristiano Ronaldo and a very young Lionel Messi, who came second and third in that nomination. But even that in itself was a feat at the time. He was also competing with players like Gerrard, Lampard, Pirlo, Drogba, players that were extremely influential in football at the time. Kaka was the standout player that year above all of them, and there was no debate. In every sense of the word, Kaka was the present and the future of football. But then something changed. Kaka stayed loyal to Milan for another year, and then in 2009 he made a big move to Real Madrid, And if you follow this channel, you'll know that superstar signings for big teams like that is something that I don't feel works out that often. And although Kaka suffered with a lot of injuries after he left and went to Madrid, it was evident that that move was full of pressure from the inside. And like every big move to Real Madrid is, and even though his body broke down, there was still a lot of dynamics going on in that move and in the dynamics of the Madrid team and football as a whole at the time that I believe led to the downfall of Kaka. So what seemed to be a big career dream move turned out to be not really what everyone was expected, which happens far too often when Madrid sign these mega players. He of course wasn't bad when he played for Madrid, not by any stretch of the imagination, but something was different. He wasn't quite the Kaka that we'd seen before. It was like he'd lost a step. He was a little bit slower. He lacked a little bit of sharpness, a little bit of creativity. Maybe he was overshadowed by the sheer domination and brilliance of Ronaldo and Messi at the time, like most players were in that era after 2007. But that remains to be seen. He had a lot of surgeries. He had a lot of knee injuries as well, which we can't forget about. And of course, injury is the biggest issue with many footballers, which we can't forget. But I think all of those factors played into the fact that his fall from grace seemed to be so quick, from being the Ballon d'Or winner, the best player in the world, to being hardly talked about, seemed to happen far too quickly as a result. It was almost like there was invisible damage on his body, and it was a smooth decline towards the end of his career at that point. And suddenly he went from the first player on the team sheet to almost an afterthought within a couple of years. Not because his talent disappeared, but because his body and his circumstances suppressed the movement of him as a player. And again, at the time, football was changing really quickly. You also had powerhouses like Higuain, Benzema, who were just smashing them in every 5 minutes. You had players like Ozil flying on the scene in those central midfield areas. Messi and Ronaldo, of course, take no introduction. And Kaka, even though he was brilliant, he almost felt like a player from a different age. He felt more like Zidane than Zlatan. He was more like Totti than Torres. It was like he was a player from a previous era. And that to me seems to be what the tragedy was. I think at the time the game just moved too fast for him in a time where his body was going through a transition. And maybe once you reach that peak, maybe the only way is down. Some players can sustain it. Some players go on and have 15 years at the very top. But some players just remind us for a moment that you can reach the top, but you might not stay there. But Kaka didn't look for the headlines. He didn't complain, and he didn't beg for sympathy. He simply played out his days wherever they were. He moved back to Milan for a short period and then ended up playing in Brazil and then finally in the MLS. A similar career to most players like Beckham and Steven Gerrard. And football, of course, moved on. But to me, Kaka's someone that I'll never forget. I'm not just a football fan, but I'm an artist. And out of all the players that I have painted, Kaka was who I wanted to illustrate on this occasion. Because to me, he represents a beauty in the game that we don't often see anymore. He represents a part of the game and a part of the culture that I think is lost on many new football fans. He made me see football differently. He made me see that it can be played elegantly and effectively at the same time. He was very similar to Zidane in that sense. He was pure but powerful at the same time. He played with joy and he played with faith. And to me, when I paint him or illustrate him, I'm not just painting a player, I'm painting a feeling that he gave me. I'm painting a moment and I'm painting a memory. This, of course, is his goal against Manchester United, which I'll flash up on screen. A goal that completely epitomises what Kaka was about. He was fast thinking, he was smooth. Other players looked like they were moving in slow motion around him. He was deadly, he was precise, and he was world class. So why isn't Kaka talked about more? Why doesn't he make more people's GOAT lists? Maybe it's longevity in the game. Maybe it's because he didn't play to be remembered. Maybe he didn't intend to take the headlines or the spotlight, but that doesn't necessarily mean he didn't deserve it. Kaka was the best in the world at one time, and that to me should be enough. And this is just a reminder that some players burn as bright as they possibly can just for a short moment, so we should enjoy every single moment of every piece of greatness that we see on the pitch. If you enjoyed this video, you might enjoy this deep dive as well. And if you want to download any of my artwork, including the Kaka artwork you've seen in this video, then just hit the link in the description below and you'll see the full collection of artwork there that can be downloaded for free as a phone wallpaper. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to subscribe if you liked the video.